Good evening, everybody. Welcome into episode 39 of Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. I'm Michael Wein. That is my frequent co-host, Mr. Emmy Nixon. We are 11 days away from the college football playoff semifinals. We had National Signing Day yesterday. However, it is still in the middle of the early signing period for the 24 class. It runs through the end of tomorrow. Welcome in for those of you watching. Engage in the comment section. We'd love for you to ask questions, make comments, voice your opinion. But now that we're kind of shifting our focus away from recruiting a little bit and moving closer and closer to the playoff, tonight we're going to have our college football playoff player draft, which we've teased in previous episodes. We will explain that here in a little bit. But before that, we are going to go through our winners and losers of what happened yesterday. It was an eventful day, especially for your Longhorns on National Signing Day. So let me welcome in my co-host, Emmy Nixon. How are you tonight?
I'm good, man. I've got my coffee ready to go. I'm feeling good. I'm excited for this episode. This was an idea that you've had for weeks now. We've been planning for this episode, um, and I'm looking forward to it. This was a really creative idea by you, and we've done something similar in the past with the 25 and under draft that we did on our main podcast. So, uh, just looking to have some fun tonight.
Okay. With all that being said, let's bring in what was a crazy day. Can you see that, by the way?
Uh, yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay. Let's bring in let's go through a quick recap of what happened. Oh, what?
Wow, the technology. There
Quick
we go.
quick recap of the Longhorns yesterday. 22 total commits from the high school ranks in this 24 class, with the possibility of more. As you can see on your screen right now, the three official 5 stars in this class. Colin Simmons, he signed early on yesterday. Brandon Baker, who's out in California at Modern Day High School, the 5-star offensive tackle, he signed early yesterday as well. And then Ryan Wingo was the interesting one yesterday. There was a little late drama as Missouri made a late push late Tuesday night going into Wednesday. However, Wingo did end up remaining steady with the Longhorns. He actually slept through his alarm, but when he woke up, he ended up signing with the Longhorns, which is great news. They really couldn't afford to lose Ryan Wingo. He was an important one to make sure they got in this class, and they were able to do so. So they locked in the big dogs. And then as you go down the list, you get to your high 4 stars. Xavier Filsamy, who we talked about on our last episode, who they flipped from Florida. The borderline 5-star. He's rated a 5-star by 24/7, but a high 4-star by all the other services. I expect that to change here pretty soon. From McKinney High School, Kobe Black, who committed last week out of Waco Connolly, who could also end up being a 5-star. Wardell Mack is another guy, a defensive back who they flipped from Florida as well, from John Eyre High School out in LA.
Jared Gibson, that running back from IMG.
Yep.
Sark went on the record making the comparison between him and Bijan. So
you got
really good to hear that for sure.
You got Jarrett Gibson, who's from Gainesville, out in IMG Academy. Daniel Cruz is an interesting prospect to me. I think he's a guy who has a body of like a center guard, but I think the Longhorns signed him as a center. So once Jake Majors leaves after next year, I kind of expect Cruz to kind of develop his body a little bit. Next year, maybe have a redshirt year. And then once Jake Majors departs after next year, as he is expected to return next year, Daniel Cruz could be one of those guys that in 2025 is ready to then step in. Kyle Flood, the offensive line coach, does a very good job, as we've seen, not only getting these high profile offensive linemen in, but now developing them. Uh, Possibly the most underrated prospect, in my opinion, in this entire class, Santana Wilson. He is the son of Adrian Wilson, who's a former NFL star and multiple time Pro Bowler. Um, he's a lengthy corner, about 6'1, 170. Needs to add some weight. I'm not sure how much playing time he might actually get next year, as that is a deep room, but I really like Santana Wilson. You flip on the film of this kid, and you can see it. You can really see it. So I love Santana Wilson. Uh, he's out of Desert Mountain High School out there in Scottsdale, Arizona. You also have DeAndre Robinson, who's a big, monstrous defensive lineman from out in Orlando, Florida. Uh, he's a lower four-star recruit. He's kind of raw. He's going to take some development, but I could definitely see him ending up at like 6'4", 330 type as kind of like the next um, Tavondre Sweat type, heavier defensive tackle who takes a couple years to develop, but could be an absolute monster once he does. Um, Zena Umeozolu, his brother is actually on the Longhorns roster right now as an offensive lineman. Uh, he's played a little bit this year, and I think he's going to play an even bigger role next year. But Zena isn't quite the talent that, say, a Colin Simmons is, but he's got the frame and the body to be really, really good. He's kind of a guy that I think needs a year or two to be baked in the oven. But I mean, he's out of Allen, Texas. There are a bunch of guys that have come out of that area. I mean, at 6'4", 225, once he puts on some muscle, puts on some more weight, uh, he could absolutely end up being a really solid college player. Christian Clark was actually the guy who Stark referenced Bijan Robinson. Uh,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
he is, along with Santana Wilson, as I've kind of said, I think the two guys that they signed from Arizona are possibly the two most underrated guys in this class, Santana Wilson and Christian Clark. He's another running back, good size. You put on his film, there's a lot to like there. He's a 4-star by pretty much every service except for 24/7. But I do think he's underrated. The last running back that they got out of the state of Arizona ended up being pretty good in Bijan Robinson. But when Sark speaks, you listen because he also compared Brandon Baker to Kelvin Banks. So
Yeah,
he wasn't just throwing out those lightly yesterday. Parker Livingston, we talked about him a couple days ago on our last show. He is one of the more underrated prospects in this class. He's right behind Ryan Wingo as kind of like a mid 4-star receiver from Lucas Lovejoy out of Lucas, Texas. He was an early commit in this class, and he stayed thorough in that commitment. I could see him as a guy who could potentially get on the field some next year. I know Sark doesn't really rotate his receivers all that much, and he really hasn't, and that approach has worked for him. But that's more so, I think, because he's been lucky enough to have a guy like Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, and Jordan Whittington, all of which are guys that are NFL caliber talents. You don't take those off the field. Next year, we're kind of looking at a receiver room where there's no, I don't think, surefire thing as an NFL draft pick quite yet. So maybe there'll be some more rotation in there. Jordan.
Yeah, there's a lot more youth as well, so you'd be more inclined to give everybody a shot.
Yeah, and he's a bigger body, 6'3", 190, 200 pounds. Could be that 50-50 vertical threat down the field, I think. But I think he's going to end up being a pretty good player. Jordan Johnson-Rubel, kind of that Swiss Army knife in the secondary. He's also out of IMG, played with Jarrett Gibson out there. Those coaches out there say he is the most solid football player on that team. It's kind of the Swiss Army knife in the secondary, really solid player to add to this deep secondary class for the Longhorns. The big one, the rest, obviously you have Freddie Dubose, who's a speedy receiver, but you're likely looking at a redshirt year for him as he's kind of stuck behind Jonte Cook, Matthew Golden, even Parker Livingston at that point in time, Ryan Wingo as well. But I wanted to talk about Ty Anthony Smith. He flipped from Texas A&M out of Jasper, Texas, Jasper High School. He flipped last night from Texas A&M to Texas. He's a 4-star linebacker. And the interesting thing about him is before he committed last night, the Longhorns did not have a linebacker committed in this class. So they left no holes unfilled. And they do get their linebacker for this cycle. Last year was a big linebacker cycle with Anthony Hill and others. This cycle wasn't so much as pretty it was kind of a weak linebacker class, especially in the state of Texas. But they do get their linebacker in Ty Anthony Smith. He's kind of a small tweener at this moment in time, 6'1", 205. He's going to need to put on some weight, but he's really athletic. And I think in a couple of years you could kind of see him play kind of that Maurice Blackwell role. It's kind of like a sideline to sideline, pretty good linebacker that could start for the Longhorns here in a couple of years. And then the quarterback of this class is, of course, Trey Owens. He's a 4-star quarterback out in Cypress, Texas, Cy-Fair High School, which is, I think, near Houston. He's underrated, but he's, of course, going to come in and have to sit behind Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning at that particular moment in time. And who knows what's going to happen next year with the commitment of KJ Lacey, who could end up, when it's all said and done, being a 5-star. But I do think Trey Owens is a solid guy to have in this class, add to that quarterback room. We talked about Alex January out of Duncanville. He's played on that same defensive line as Colin Simmons. He won, I believe, the district defensive player of the year. Colin Simmons was, I think, the district player of the year. I'm not really sure. Each of them got an award.
I think Colin Simmons won the state championship.
Yeah, he won that.
MVP or something like that.
He won the defensive MVP of the state championship. But Alex January, another big body on that defensive line. Bo Davis continues to get some SEC type bodies on the defensive line. I think he's a guy that, you might see on the field next year. I'm not entirely sure about that, how that defensive line rotation is quite going to work out just yet. But, I mean, at 6'5", 320 as of right now, put him in the weight room. He could end up absolutely being a monster. These last guys are kind of more developmental guys. Melvin Hills, a defensive lineman out of Lafayette Christian Academy in the state of Louisiana, and then Nate Kibble, who's kind of a guard, a high 3-star, 4-star guard, interior lineman who's going to need some development, but is a pretty good prospect also from the state of Texas. And then, of course, you have your punter. Texas knows how to recruit kickers and punters. Michael Kern from St. Thomas Aquinas, which is one of the better high school football programs out in the state of Florida. He's a 3-star punter for what that's worth. Punters never get they don't get big ratings. So it's not like you can get a 5-star punter. And then you, of course, have the 2 transfers who signed as well. Andrew Makuba, that is official. He is signed with Texas. As you can see, his high school ratings, he was a 4-star pretty much across the board. And then pretty much the same with Matthew Golden, the receiver from Houston. I believe he was a 4-star across the board as well. So 24 total commits. I wanted to do a little rundown of the Texas signing class. But of course, the big thing being they were able to lock down the big guns: Colin Simmons, Brandon Baker, Ryan Wingo. And then, of course, their flips: Xavier Filsaime, Ty Anthony Smith, and everyone else that they got in this class: Kobe Black, Jared Gibson, Wardell Mack. The super blue chips of this class, they all signed in the early signing period. And 17 of these 22 signed high school commits will enroll in January. So they're early enrollees, which means they will be in for spring ball, and they will get those 15 to 20 practices plus the scrimmage early on, which I think will be valuable. Sark has been blunt and clear about if you don't enroll early as a freshman and get those extra practices in the spring, it's very unlikely that you are going to play in the fall, because it just gives you so much of an advantage getting those reps early on in the spring, getting in the weight room early, as opposed to coming to campus just for fall camp. So there are a couple guys that aren't going to enroll early, but those are more so the guys that have already kind of been told that they're more than likely going to be red shirts anyways. And so those are the guys kind of near the bottom that you see. Nate Kibble, Michael Kern, of course, doesn't really need to enroll early as he's a punter. And then Melvin Hills. I'm not quite sure about. No, Alex January is an early enrollee. There's one other in this class, Freddie Dubose, the wide receiver, is going to be. He won't show up until the fall, but everyone else, I believe, is pretty much going to show up. Ty Anthony Smith, who flipped from A&M yesterday, he will be on campus in January. And he was another guy who flipped. Or sorry, not who flipped. You already knew that, but who took an official visit to Texas last weekend, and he kind of played it up a little bit, told people he wasn't taking an official visit to Texas, but he actually was. And somehow, I think that was more so to kind of more so smoke, more so than anything else. So there's the Texas signing class. I'll go deeper into each prospect at a later date. But right now, I wanted to give you the updates on who signed, kind of a quick overview of the breakdown of this signing class so far, with the potential of a couple more to come. We know about Trey Moore. He's possibly going to make a decision, I think, by the end of this weekend. He's down to Texas and Alabama. I've heard it's closer than originally thought to be. But Texas is still the favorite there. Of course, you can never discount Nick Saban, and he did take an official visit to Alabama last weekend. So you can never discount or count out Nick Saban if he really wants a guy. But I think the interesting part about that is it's a Texas kid, and it's Nick Saban going against his kind of one of his former assistants for a big time transfer portal get. And then there's a potential for a couple more high school guys to potentially sign in this early signing period. There's a 4-star defensive lineman from A&M that could announce for Texas tomorrow, but he could also stick with A&M. We're not really sure on that one. And then there's also a receiver from out in California. His name is Aaron Butler. kind of a 4-star kid who would add to this receiver depth. So he could absolutely decide for the Longhorns tomorrow as well. So yeah, I think this class could get very well to like 24, 25 high school kids plus probably 4 or 5 transfers. So there will need to be some more attrition, if you will, from this current Texas roster. I think there are still guys probably that are going to transfer that'll probably just wait until after the college football playoff. So there's that. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Do you have anything else to add there?
No, I think for me in terms of recruiting, I'm still my brain typically in December goes straight to NFL draft stuff, and I'm still getting used to, like I said, well, like I've said before, the whole recruiting side of things. So yeah, this has been good so far.
Yeah, I wanted to get more into a national perspective. I mean, real fast before we get to our draft. I think if you were following yesterday, Florida had a tough go at it. They're under Billy Napier. They had a bunch of guys peel off and flip yesterday. Let's see. I wanted to make sure I have it right. They had a 4-star receiver, Isaiah Williams, flip to Texas A&M. That was a good get for A&M. Some positive momentum finally for the Aggies. 4-star defensive end, flip to Auburn, and a 4-star linebacker flip to Miami. Now, luckily for Florida, they were able to keep 5-star quarterback DJ Lagway in the fold. So they did get their quarterback, and he did sign. There were rumors he might flip to Lincoln Riley and USC, but he did not. And then 4-star athlete Jaden Baugh also signed with Florida. So they kept LJ McCray as well in the fold. So the biggest of the biggest guys signed, but some of that depth in that recruiting class that originally had made it a top 5 class peeled off. So there is some negative momentum right now and questions about Billy Napier at Florida. And then let's talk about Colorado. We haven't really mentioned them on this podcast in a while since their fast start to the season. Wasn't a great day for Colorado. They really spoiled us the last 2 recruiting cycles with some flash commitments. Of course, 2 years ago, you all remember Travis Hunter as the number 1 overall player in the country committing to Colorado. Committing to Jackson State and then flipping over to Colorado once Dion came. And then last year, you saw 5-star corner Kermani McLean commit to Colorado. But on Wednesday, they only were able to sign 5 high school players. And the one 5-star that they do have in Jordan Seaton, who's an offensive lineman, which is a huge position of need, has yet to sign his letter of intent. And that's not a great sign. When a kid says he's going to sign early and then doesn't when he's committed to a said school, that's not a great sign for the school that he's currently committed to. Now, that doesn't mean he couldn't still sign with Colorado, but it's a little shaky there. So we'll see what Colorado does. My expectation is that they'll probably ramp up their pursuit of some portal kids. Florida State didn't have the greatest day. They tried to flip Jeremiah Smith, who's a 5-star receiver from Ohio State. They got close there, but ultimately he sticked with Ohio State. And then KJ Bolden, who was a 5-star number 1 safety in the country, the only safety ranked ahead of Xavier Filsaime in the recruiting rankings. He flipped to Georgia of all schools. It wasn't a great day for Florida State. They lost the best player in their class, 5-star defensive end Orlando Blunt flipped to Miami. So they lost 2 5-stars, and they missed out on flipping a 5-star receiver that they really wanted. And then lastly, USC didn't have the greatest early signing period. There are some questions about what potentially is going on with Lincoln Riley's program. But 5-star quarterback commit from a couple years ago, Malachi Nelson, entered the transfer portal. Domani Jackson, who was a highly touted corner from a year or two ago, also entered the transfer portal. Corey Foreman and Tackett Curtis, who are all 4-stars, enter the transfer portal. So I don't necessarily know if there's anything too concerning going on out there, but it's something to keep an eye on. Those were my losers from National Signing Day. Everyone else were able to get the guys that they wanted. Georgia was able to flip the safety. Auburn had a really good signing day. Watch out for them under Hugh Freeze here in a year or two.
Nice day for Nebraska as well, from what I've heard.
Yeah, Nebraska was able to flip that quarterback Dylan Raiola from Georgia. And then Alabama made a surge. What I forgot to mention earlier was that they flipped Aaron Hampton. He was kind of an athlete. He was a 4-star athlete, meaning he played offense and defense in high school. They just call those kids athletes at the end of the day. And the story on that is Texas was recruiting him as a safety, more of a defensive back type. And Alabama was recruiting him to be a receiver. And turns out he wants to play receiver. So he went to Alabama. Yeah, so that's about it for that part. Let's get into our player draft if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay, so the way this is going to work is on my phone. This isn't probably the most efficient way to do it, but I have my notes tab opened up, and I have 2 rosters laid out. So I'm going to be keeping track of our draft. So on offense, we're going to draft a quarterback. We're each going to draft a quarterback. We're going to draft 2 running backs. We're going to draft 2 receivers. You can draft 1 flex player, which can be like a slot guy, another receiver, or a tight end. It's up to you. And then we're going to draft 1 offensive tackle and 1 interior lineman. On the defensive side of the ball, you get 1 defensive tackle or interior defensive lineman, 2 edge players, another linebacker, 2 corners, and a safety. So it's not perfect symmetry all around, but in total, that's 8 offensive players and 7 defensive players. All good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, how are we going to determine who picks first?
I
haven't really thought about that yet.
Yeah, I haven't either. Let's do what we did last time. Let's flip a coin. I'll share my screen. I'm gonna pull up coin flip on Google. You know what? I'm not gonna share my screen. That's gonna take too long. I'm just gonna flip it. Do you want heads or tails?
I'll take tails.
And it's tails. All right. Do you want the first pick or the second and third picks?
I'll take the first pick this time.
All right. Go ahead, man.
So we are going to do a snake draft, as you probably already figured. Let me get to my big board here. So I was kind of coming at this more so initially at the start, kind of drafting NFL prospects. So let me get to my big board. There are a lot of good options here, no doubt. Do I want to go quarterback first, or do I want to kind of go elsewhere first? It's a tough decision, but I think at the end of the day, what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this might be a little surprising. I'm going to get Romo Dunze, the receiver from Washington.
Ooh,
I
good
think he's
pick.
one of the best players in this playoff. Top 3 to 5, in my opinion. He's one of the most valuable vertical threats in this class. But I think there's more to his game than we've seen at Washington. He can create after the catch, runs a decent route tree, has the size to body up any kind of defensive back. We've seen him catch those 50-50 balls from Michael Penix. He has a unique ability to adjust mid-air. I've heard comparisons to Devontae Adams, and I kind of don't necessarily dislike those. I'm not sure he has the explosiveness of, say, a Jamar Chase, but I could definitely see parts of his game that are somewhat reminiscent of Devontae Adams. I love Romo Dunze. I'm honestly scared for what he might do to the Texas secondary. I hope he doesn't go nuts, but I'm going to go Romo Dunze. I think he's one of the flat out best players that we will see play on the field January 1st.
Yeah, that's who I was gonna go with as well. That's a good pick. Yeah, I can't argue against that. There, he's got a track background. He's a guy who's like, in terms of route running, has he mixes up his release patterns. He knows how to run the deep routes. He like really has a nice change of speed. He doesn't just keep the same speed the whole way through. His route running ability, his understanding of routes is extremely high level. Yeah, it was a. I mean, in terms of depth at the wide receiver position, I think he was head and shoulders above the rest in terms of this group in the playoff. Okay, so for my pick, let's see here. I think I'm gonna attack the defensive line. I'm gonna take Dallas Turner from Alabama, the edge rusher. Um, Dallas Turner, the big thing with him is from last year to this year, he's really added a ton of pass rushing moves to like go on top of his main move, which is the long arm. He long arms you. He can lead that into a spin. He can lead that into a bull rush, and he really keeps tackles and just keeps tackles on their heels really with how he plays. And he already has the physical ability. He's already fantastic against the run. So I felt like adding him to the defensive line for my team was the move here with Roma Dunze off the board.
Yeah, Dallas Turner, he will be one of your 2 edges. So you went with Dallas Turner. That's a great pick. He was one of the guys I was considering. Who is going to be your second pick?
For my second pick, ooh, this is tough now. I'm gonna go with another Alabama player. I'm gonna go with Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback. Um, pretty self-explanatory, man. Whenever you get a 3-year player at Alabama that has had the production year over year over year that Kool-Aid McKinstry has had, I mean, you want that guy on your team. Simple as that. And like his track record is really freaking good. When you look at the receivers he's gone up against and how well he has held up, not only is he going to play a huge role on this Alabama team in the playoff, but I mean, I think any team that gets him in the draft, it's a steal.
Absolutely. Okay. So you went Dallas Turner and Kool-Aid McKinstry, 2 studs on that Alabama team. Okay, so with my third pick, I'm going to attack the offensive and defensive lines. I'm going to go with my first pick. I'm going to go J.C. Latham, offensive tackle out of Alabama. Um, and, what do I have to say on J.C. Latham? Well, he's 6'6", 335 pounds. He is a junior, so he's a 3-year starter at Alabama. I think he's, from what I can gather early on, the best right tackle in this upcoming draft class. He's a man with incredible strength in the run game, moves his feet really well for a guy his size. So far in 2023, according to The Athletic, he's allowed just 11 pressures, never more than 2 in one game. And that really the key to Alabama's run game starts with uh, J.C. Latham and Tyler Booker, who's also one of the most talented offensive linemen uh, in this college football playoff up there for Alabama. It's a monster on my offensive line. I need someone to block Dallas Turner, and so I'll go with J.C. Latham. And then my second pick is going to be pretty obvious here. I think this guy's maybe going to actually end up a first-round pick, borderline first-round pick. I'm going with the Outland Trophy winner, T'Vondre Sweat. Uh, he is there's a reason he won the Outland Trophy. Um, he's a monster, 8 tackles for loss, 10% pressure rate. He's not just one of those big space eaters. He also has good instincts at the line of scrimmage. He's batted down 6 passes this year. Flip on the tape, he's an absolute monster. He's had 4 or 5 years of development, which I really like, to develop his body. Really good getting off blocks, monster in the backfield against the run, and I need to be strong up front. So I'm going to go with the best defensive lineman in college football this year, T'Vondre Sweat, with my second pick.
Yeah, can't say much wrong with that. I mean, pretty self-explanatory there. I mean, going with a Texas guy. I mean, if you're going with someone from Texas in your first few picks, that's the guy you're going to take it. That's the guy you're going to take. Okay, for my next pick. Okay, so I've got wide receiver. I got one wide receiver, one corner, and one D tackle. I'm going to attack offensive line now. I'm going to take Kelvin Banks, left tackle from Texas. Pretty simple, man. I mean, he's as good in terms of technique and just physical talent as anyone in the country. I mean, snap after snap, year over year. I mean, this guy is as reliable as it gets. So that's who I want in my left tackle spot. Pretty simple.
Okay. Who else do you want?
I think I'm gonna take my other interior defensive lineman. I'm gonna take Chris Jenkins from Michigan, our first Michigan player off the board. I think this dude is extremely underrated. He's extremely important to the middle of that Michigan defense. And you might recognize that name, Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins, his father played in the NFL at D tackle as well, and you can see it in his technique and the way he plays the game, just in terms of pushing the pocket and gap discipline as well. He's as good as it gets, and his understanding of the position as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so far, on the defensive side of the ball, you've got your defensive tackle in Chris Jenkins, got one of your edge guys in Dallas Turner from Alabama. You've got Kool-Aid McKinstry in the secondary. It's one of your corners. And you've got Kelvin Banks on the offensive line. I've got so far, I've got Romo Dunze, the receiver from Washington, J.C. Latham, the tackle from Alabama, and then on my defensive line, forgot to write it down, I have T'Vondre Sweat, the Outland Trophy winner from the Longhorns. So with my next picks, got to think about this just a little bit. I'll go with Terry and Arnold, the other half to what is a fantastic corner tandem for Alabama. Uh, he is he's seen a ton of work opposite Cooley McKinstry this year, and he's performed brilliantly. He's elevated his draft stock. He's about 6 foot, 195 pounds, pretty good size. He's broken up 12 passes this year to go along with 5 interceptions, so he is a playmaker. He's got 13 forced incompletions. Been a really solid guy opposite Kool-Aid McKinstry. They're both really, really talented. Both will probably be day 1 or day 2 picks in my eyes. But Terry and Arnold is a name to watch on that Alabama defense going into the playoff. Absolutely. So let me write that down. That's my first corner off the board. So both the corners from Alabama are now gone. No surprise there.
Yeah.
No surprise there. And then with my next pick, I need to get an edge rusher.
Oh no! Don't take my guy. Don't no. I have someone in mind.
I'm gonna go. Do I want Braylon Trice or do I want Chris Braswell from Alabama? I'll go Braylon Trice, Washington. He is a 4-down edge rusher, 273 pounds, good power, good base. Going to push the pocket, set edges in the run game. Just a really solid player. He's got 8 tackles for loss. 16% pressure rate, which is really, really good. Good hand usage, high motor. You can move him around the line of scrimmage on passing downs, which I like. And it's going to be a battle between him and the Texas tackles in 11 days. We're going to actually get to see that play out on live time. But I went with Braylon Trice, the edge from Washington.
Yeah, really good pick there. He only had, I shouldn't say only, but he had 5 sacks on the season, but that doesn't really tell the full story. He's extremely good in run defense, first of all, and then number 2, he's also the pressure that he puts on the quarterback opens the door for other guys to get into the backfield as well. So, really good pick there. All right, for my next pick, I'm going to go with Washington corner Jabbar Muhammad. Actually, I've had my eye on this guy for a while in terms of just draft stuff, and I've been listening to different podcasts that have talked about his draft standing, and this guy is flying up draft boards. He's a junior right now, so we don't know for sure whether he's going to be in the NFL draft just yet, but he led the team in interceptions. He had 10 passes defended on the season, 2 sacks, made his impact in blitzes as well, 42 tackles, and his tackling percentage is also really, really good per Pro Football Focus, 90th percentile for his position. So, just thought he was the best available corner left here.
Okay, so you went with
Jabbar Muhammad.
Yeah, I believe he's actually the cousin of Malik Muhammad at Texas. So good pick there. Who's your next pick?
Okay, I have the safety from Alabama in mind, but I cannot think of his name at the moment. I have it here. Oh shoot, where is it? Caleb Downs. There he is. Okay. Yeah, Caleb Downs, true freshman, led Alabama in tackles, had 99 tackles on the year. Really, really impressive. They play him just about anywhere as like a hybrid safety. He plays like as like the one safety deep, free safety role. He also plays closer to the line of scrimmage. He's basically a Swiss Army knife type of player that you can play anywhere in your secondary and make an impact.
Okay. Caleb Downs, he was a highly recruited guy as well. Speaking of recruiting, I believe he was. I think he's a freshman, and
Yeah, true freshman. Yeah.
yeah, he was one of the best safeties in last year's recruiting class. And it was a battle down the stretch for him, but of course, I mean, who else to win out on that type of high-profile recruitment other than Nick Saban? So your defense right now, you've got 2 spots left. You've got your interior defensive lineman and Chris Jenkins. You've got an edge rusher. You've got Kool-Aid McKinstry and Jabbar Muhammad and Caleb Downs. So your secondary set, you just need another edge and a linebacker. For me, on the other hand, my defense is looking pretty good as well. I've got Tavondre Sweat. I've got the edge from Washington, Braylon Trice. And I've got Terrion Arnold in my secondary, the corner from Alabama. I've also got Romo Dunze on my offense and J.C. Latham at tackle. So you really can't go wrong in this style of draft where there's only 4 teams and a bunch of NFL talent running all around the field.
Yeah. All of it.
I'm going to go with my next pick. I might mispronounce his last name, so forgive me. Mike Sainristil from Michigan, the corner.
Yep.
He's going to be my other corner. Look, he's going to depart Michigan after the playoff, but he was the 2023 Big Ten Championship Game MVP. He was the 2023 All Big Ten First Team Selection. He was a CBS Sports Second Team All-American at corner. He's a 2-time team captain for Michigan, and he's a viable NFL drafted guy. You put on the tape, and I really like what I see. Some people say he's a little undersized, and that might be of concern, but I think he's an absolute dog, and it's interesting because he did, I believe, switch from receiver to defensive back ahead of last year. So he is newer at the corner position, but he showcased his versatility this year. He played both nickel and outside corner. He has a pair of pick sixes, 2 forced fumbles, a pair of INTs against Maryland. I remember that game. That was a game that actually was closer than some people thought it would be. I believe he had a monstrous hit against Ohio State, if I remember. I just think he's a really solid player, and he's going to be my other cornerback. So he's also my first Michigan player on my team. With my next pick, what do I want to do? I do need another edge. Obviously, we haven't drafted quarterbacks yet. I could take another receiver off the board if I wanted to. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the other edge rusher from Alabama, Chris Braswell, who people kind of glaze over because of Dallas Turner. But he's turned himself into a very productive 3-year down edge piece who checks about every single box. He's an athletic freak. Blend of length and burst off the line of scrimmage, just like Dallas Turner. He's a problem, especially in third and long situations. So I think he's one of the better edge players in this college football playoff, and that's who I'll pair with Braylon Trice as my edge duo.
Yeah, good pick there. Yeah. Okay. I think next, I think I got offense a little bit. Okay, I think I'm going to go with Either JT Sanders or AD Mitchell. I think I'm going to go with JT Sanders. I'm going to attack some maybe like position scarcity a little bit. I think just in terms of a you know solid tight end, he's going to block. He's going to do the dirty work, but also be a reliable target as well. I think there's a chance we could see JT Sanders have a huge game in the playoff. To be honest, I think we haven't seen the best of him yet, and he's due for a huge game. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think he's. I don't think it's a hot take to say he's the most talented tight end in the playoff, unless I'm forgetting somebody. Okay. Anyways, my next pick, I'm going to take Jalen Ford. Lock up my defense a little bit. Attack another position scarcity a little bit. Last year was first team All Big 12. We've talked about him extensively on this podcast. I'm not going to get into it right here, but I mean, what more could you want from your linebacker? I mean, he's the leader of the defense. Extremely vocal and just in control of everything, and that's what you want from the quarterback of your defense.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, so right now it looks like you just need one more edge on your defense. See, I feel like I'm forgetting someone that I already picked for my team, but I'll figure that out a little later. Okay, so I have both my corners. I need a linebacker and a safety. I think what I'll do next is I'll just go ahead and take Xavier Worthy off the board, pair with Romo Dunze. I mean, there's no question in my mind that Xavier Worthy will go down as one of the more productive wide receivers in Texas program history. He just gets open. That's really what his specialty is. His speed and explosiveness really stresses the defense, both sideline to sideline, after the catch, and downfield. He's a rare athlete. 969 yards on 73 receptions this year. Finding voids in the coverage downfield. He's a bit undersized. And I don't know if he has necessarily the play strength of a guy, say, like Devontae Smith. I'd probably see him more as maybe a slot guy in the NFL. But he did gain 56% of his yards after the catch this year. And he also was able to iron out some of the drop issues that he had at the end of last year, although he was playing with a broken hand, to be fair. But he's instant offense. If he's not a first-round pick, he's definitely a second-round pick in my mind. So I'll take Xavier Worthy. And then this is where it gets tough a little bit. Still have the quarterback position available. I filled both my wide receiver slots. There's really nothing else to do. Let me see. Who's the guy I'm thinking of right now? I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to take Colston Loveland, tight end from Michigan. Let's see. I just had it pulled up. He's a younger player. So I don't think he's going to be going to the draft this year. But he has garnered comparisons to Travis Kelce. Great size, 6'5", 245. Excellent speed for a guy that size. Great strength. He's also an asset as a blocker. There's a reason that Michigan run game is so good. because they also have big tight ends that can block and go out in patterns as pass catchers. He made some huge plays this year. He had a 45-yard touchdown reception against Ohio State last year, and a 25-yard score against Purdue last year. He's come up big again this year in the Ohio State game. He led the team with 5 receptions for 88 yards, 40 of which were after the catch. So he is athletic and can get downfield, turn and run after the catch. Pretty versatile guy. I'm not sure he's as purely talented as say a JT Sanders, who can really kind of split out at receiver. It is kind of a matchup nightmare, but he's a really, really solid player. There's no doubt about that. I like his size, catches the football, good blocker. Let's see. He's got 37 receptions for 550 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season. So pretty good player. There's not really another tight end out there that I'd consider taking. So I went with Colston Loveland from Michigan.
Yeah, good pick. All right. My defense is filled. I think this is where I'm going to go quarterback. I'm going to take Michael Penix. Go ahead and lock that in. And I don't know. I think for me, since I wasn't able to get Rome Odunze, who I thought was the best wide receiver available, I think it would be important to make up for that at the quarterback position. And I'm going to pair him with Jalen Polk as well. I'm going to take Jalen Polk, pair those two guys together. They've already got the chemistry built in, obviously. And I just think Michael Penix, you pair him with JT Sanders, you pair him with Jalen Polk. I think one of his best strengths, I'd say, is just throwing those jump balls in tight coverage, like throwing those 50-50 balls and putting them in the right spot where only your guy can get it. That's what Michael Penix does. So you got to give him big receivers that can make those plays.
Okay, so you went Michael Penix, the quarterback from Washington, and then you went with
And
Jalen Polk,
wide receiver, Washington.
Yeah. He's a good player for sure. All right, so it looks like you still need another edge player. So you've got Chris Jenkins, you've got Dallas Turner, you've got Jalen Ford, you've got your 2 corners, and you've got your safety, but there's still another edge player to be filled there. On offense, you've got Penix, you've got Polk, you've got Sanders, and you've got Banks. Unless I'm forgetting anybody. So you still need an interior offensive lineman, another receiver, and 2 running backs. And I need a linebacker and a safety on defense, and I need a quarterback, 2 running backs, and an interior lineman on offense. Okay, so what do I want to do here? Do I want to attack interior offensive lineman? This is where it gets kind of dicey. Don't want to get a quarterback.
Yeah, I think since I've already taken my quarterback, you might as well save quarterback for your last pick.
Yeah,
And just take best guy available.
that's probably true. Okay. I don't know how to say his name. So I'll try my best. But I think his name is Troy.
I think I know who you're talking about. Alua Timmy or something like that.
No, Troy.
Michigan Center.
No. Who was the guy that got hurt for Michigan? I don't know if we're drafted. I'll go with the guy from Washington. I don't know how to say his name. Troy Faltanu. I think is how you say it. He's kind of He's a powerful run blocker for sure. I think he'd thrive in the NFL in sort of more of a inside zone gap scheme running scheme. Low pad level and center of gravity. Um, Short area burst. I've watched him a little bit, kind of getting ready for this Texas Washington game. He's going to have his hands full for sure, and we'll see how good he actually is when he goes up against Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. But he has the physical dimensions to be a swing lineman. He projects well on the interior, but he's also capable of playing tackle. I like his versatility. He's good at pass setting. We'll see how he works out in the NFL, but there's a good foundation to work with there. And to be honest with you, didn't do much research into interior offensive linemen for this episode. So I think he's solid enough for the purposes of this exercise. And then trying to think of linebackers. Who is available at linebacker or safety for that matter?
What's his name? Junior Colson.
Yeah, I'll take him. I'll take Junior Colson. He's a linebacker, right?
Yeah.
I'll take
6'3",
him.
247.
Yep. Really solid player.
All right.
Is he draft eligible after this year? I think.
Yeah.
I'll have to check on that.
Yes, he's a junior. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a junior.
Perfect. All right. Those will be my 2 picks.
Okay. All right. First, I'm going to take Zach Zinter, the right guard for Michigan. I actually have a couple of stats on him. So he's one of 3 returning starters this year, and on 389 pass blocking snaps, he only surrendered 9 pressures all season long. So really impressive stuff there. And obviously we know about Michigan's run game. He played a part in that as well. So I thought he would be a good fit. And then for my other pick, I'll take A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah. Double-digit touchdown guy this year. I've heard he might even go ahead of Xavier Worthy in the draft.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing a lot in rankings.
That's a good pick. I've also heard some scuttlebutt that there's a slight chance he could come back next year, but I don't believe it. I think he's set for the NFL. I don't think there's any NIL deal out there that's going to match what he could potentially make as a first-round NFL wide receiver.
Yeah.
I think the NIL stuff is more so for the borderline like day 2, day 3 guys who are debating whether or not they want to go to the NFL or come back for another year to try to elevate their draft stock to that level. So you took A.D. Mitchell and then you took Zach Zinter for interior lineman.
Yep. And I just don't think AD has anything else to prove in terms of college. Like, he's already had huge games and big moments. He could have another one here in a few weeks, hopefully. But, I mean, just in terms of route running and just consistency, I mean, it's all there. This is just a really deep wide receiver class. That's really the only thing that's keeping him from being a top 5 guy in this class.
Yeah. Okay. Good picks. For me, since you went with Zach Zinter, who had that unfortunate injury, he had surgery to repair breaks in his tibia and fibula, so hopefully he's okay. I'll go with Jonathan Brooks. I think until the point that he got hurt, he was the best running back in college football this year. He was on pace to have a All-American type of season. Unfortunately, he tears his ACL in that TCU game near the end, which was unfortunate for Texas. But I think what he did this year speaks for itself. I think there's an argument to be made. I know there's Blake Corum and some other good backs out there in this playoff. Dylan Johnson from Washington being one of them, but I like Jonathan Brooks. What he can also showed in the passing game this year was excellent. I think he's still his rehab I've heard is going really, really well. I think he's still probably going to end up being a day 2 pick in the NFL. I think teams will deal with the fact that he might be a little slow getting onto the field, but they'll take him. I think he's still going to get drafted fairly high. I think he's still viewed as one of the better running backs in this draft class. So I'll take my guy, Jonathan Brooks, the first running back off the board. What else do I need? I need one more running back. I need a quarterback, and I need a safety. But I'm going to save the quarterback for my last pick. So with that being said, who's available at safety right now? You know? You have any idea?
I think there's a safety at Washington. I can't remember his name. That's pretty good. Um, from Michigan, you've got Rodmore Jr., Makari Page. Uh,
Um,
yeah, safety's a tough one. That's why I kind of took the safety so early, is because I didn't really know who to pick other than the one I got.
yeah, I mean, I could go one of the Texas guys as a cop out, but I don't know. I'll go with the Moore kid from Michigan. I don't, because I don't know the name of the Washington kid, to be honest with you. So I'll take him. I think he's pretty solid, playing on a really solid defense. I don't know if he's going to be in the draft this year, but I mean, heck, deal with it. I'll take him. So I think we both have 2 picks left, I believe. Or you have, actually,
Yep.
you've got 3 picks left. You've got 2 running backs and an edge, unless you've already taken that edge.
No, I have
Okay.
not. Running back, I think I'm going to go Blake Corum.
Good pick. Can't go wrong there.
Might be a cop out, but I think I'll go. I'm between C.J. Baxter and Donovan Edwards. I'll go Donovan Edwards.
Okay. Good pick. So you got the 2 Michigan running backs.
Got a good mix of all the teams on that team.
Okay, so for my last pick, which will be a quarterback, or actually, no, I need a running back and a quarterback. Oh man, do I want to take the high upside in Jalen Milroe, or go with the safer bet in Quinn Ewers? I'll go with Jalen Milroe. I think he's a game changer. He adds that added element of playmaking with his legs more so than anybody else in this group of quarterbacks. And then
I think that's big.
and then at running back, I'll go ahead and fill that void. I'm between C.J. Baxter and Dylan Johnson, the kid at Washington. I'll go Dylan Johnson. I think I've seen a little bit more out of him than I have C.J. Baxter so far. So I'll go Dylan Johnson.
Yeah, I remember he really showed out in that Oregon game. We watched that one live. Really good runner. Just Doesn't really like jump off the screen athletically, but it's just that little jump cut he's got. It's like I think I said it on the live as well, but it's very like Frank Gore esque kind of. Okay, my last pick. I might need your help with the next edge player. I'm not. My head is like just not.
Yeah.
No one's ringing a bell for me for this last edge guy.
Um. Let's see. Yeah, the edge. Alabama guys are pretty much gone.
Yep.
Trice from Washington.
He's taking Turner, the other Alabama guy, and then Trice. So I think there's a kid from Michigan that I'm forgetting. Maybe. Oh
You could
man.
also go with Ethan Burke, or you could go with I Let You. Do I want to let you take Anthony Hill? I don't know if that. I don't know if I'm going to let you do that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's not really a. Um, I'll go with Ethan Burke. That's fine. I think that's. I think he's been good to where I won't have to worry about it too much.
No, I mean, first year year fully starting. Had 5.5 sacks this year.
Yeah.
Showed up in big moments. Going to continue. He's not going to the draft this year, but he's going to continue to get better. Hometown kid too. Westlake High School. Can't go wrong with
Yeah.
those kids. Okay, so that'll wrap that up. I found this to be really fun. A little harder towards the end than I originally thought,
Yeah.
but it was fun anyway.
Kind of ran out of players there.
I think we got majority of like the marquee guys that are key to watch in this playoff. So what we'll do, we'll find a way to post both rosters um, here. Maybe not tonight since it is late, but here in the coming days. We still have some time until the playoffs, so we'll find a creative way to get that out, and then we'll be back next week sometime. I know it's Christmas, so I'm going to try to find a time that we can get on to actually preview the games, because next week will be the time that we'll make our predictions. We'll talk about the matchups and all that kind of stuff. And maybe there will be some more portal news at that moment in time we can get into, along with college basketball. So, with all that being said, it is past midnight, or it is midnight on the dot. So, we will sign off for tonight. So, thank you guys for watching.
I do just want to say though, I'm kind of interested. Which team did we pick from the least amount?
So, let's go through it real fast. Let me go through it. So, so it looks like
Probably Washington, I think.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 guys from Washington. You've got
Ooh, that's a good amount.
you've
Yeah.
got 1, 2, 3 guys from Washington, because you've got Muhammad, you've got Penix, and you've got Polk, and I have Dylan Johnson, Romo Dunze, the interior lineman, and the edge, Braylon Trice. So I don't think that's 7 for Washington.
Yeah, that's a good amount. Yeah, I take that back.
Alabama, let's see. I've got the quarterback, the tackle, and then I have Chris Braswell and Terrion Arnold. So that's 4 for me.
Okay.
You've got, let's see. Okay, so you don't have any Alabama players on offense. But you do have Dallas Turner, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Caleb Downs. So that's 7 for both Washington and Alabama. For Texas, let's see how Texas did. So I've got Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Worthy, and Tavondre Sweat. You've got A.D. Mitchell, J.T. Sanders, Kelvin Banks, and Jalen Ford. So that's 7 for Texas.
Every team is set. So
So
that means,
Michigan had
oh my God,
so Michigan. Let's see. I didn't take any. No, I took the tight end. So I got Loveland, and then I have uh, the two secondary players. So that's 3.
and then you took the linebacker as well, right?
Yes, that's 4. And then you took Donovan Edwards. That's 5. And you took
Blake Corum, and then Chris Jenkins.
that
So 7 from each.
Jenkins and Zach Zinter. Yeah, 7 for each. Evenly
Dang.
split. It's weird how that works out. Because we
Yeah.
we each drafted how many players did we each draft? We each drafted 15. Is that right? So 8 on offense,
So
7 on
yeah,
defense.
15. So
Wow. Okay. Well, if that's how it works out, that's how it works out.
I
So
guess.
uh, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's really kind of goes to show you how evenly kind of the talent is split out through these teams. And
Yeah.
we got one team from each conference. We got Big Ten represented, we've got SEC represented, Big 12 represented, and Pac-12 represented. Now I know next year
Yeah. The ACC.
it'll be all Big Ten and SEC, but for now, 4 different conferences. So with all that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys watching here past midnight. We really wanted to get this episode out, and we will see you soon. Hook 'em horns. Peace
Yeah.
out.
Peace out.